It's real talk, real people, real issues, real events.
Yes.
Tonight we have Lolo and LeVar Jennings. They
Woo-hoo.
are, yes, thank you guys. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, so you guys are part of my series on couples. And I'm so thankful that you guys are here this evening to the live world, just sharing your intimate story of what makes you guys successful as a couple. You guys have just celebrated 25 years of marriage a couple of days
25
ago.
years.
So congratulations. And
Thank
tonight we're going
you.
to find out how you made it through 25 years.
Okay.
So we're going to
Okay.
start out by asking the one question is share your story, share your beginnings.
Ooh, who wants to go?
You go first.
Me? I always do. Yeah, I can be the hog a little bit. I will hog it a little bit. So LeVar and I met actually in high school. I always say 10th grade, and he corrects me. And he goes, no, it was 11th grade. So it was 11th grade apparently. I came from California. Lived in, or excuse me, where did I live? Yeah, I lived in California, and it was odd enough to know that he actually lived in California, but we didn't know each other. Both originally born and raised in Ohio. He's from Lima, I'm from Warren. And we moved to Dublin, Ohio, which is where we met each other in high school. And, it was it was really just a blossoming friendship. We became such good friends. I knew that I wanted him in my life romantically at that time. He just didn't know. I just needed him to catch up. It takes men a little longer to catch up with that thought, but
I concur with
um,
that.
right, it takes them a bit to like wrap their minds around it. But the one thing that attracted me to him was he was just such a sweet individual. His personality was so inviting and so different from my previous, experiences. Never met anyone quite like him. He was funny. Of course, he was cute. He wore cross colors. If you know anything about cross colors, but that was like a thing back in the 90s.
Purple jeans.
Purple jeans and the striped shirts.
Crayon
Valid.
And he played basketball and so he was all of these things that I had never really experienced just from a human perspective, right? All of the men that had ever crossed my path or been in my life were definitely not men that I wanted to be around. He was one of the men and he wasn't even a man at that time, but he was a young man who I definitely wanted more of that, whatever that was. And I was rough around the edges, so trust me on this. Most people think when you're rough around the edges, you're attracted to those who are rough around the edges. No, not this sister. No, I needed something different than I had ever experienced. All the men that in my life I saw were abusive, verbally, physically, were on either drug addicts, something of the like. He was quite the opposite of that. So anyway, long story short, we met each other. We were friends. He saw the worst of me. And when I say the worst of me, I'm not proud of this by any means. So y'all hear me out. He saw me beat people up. I was that girl. Rude, obnoxious, but very, they say hurt people hurt people.
Right.
That's it in a nutshell. And he still accepted me for who I was. He never looked down on me. He never made me feel bad for those experiences. He looked disappointed, of course, but he never made me feel any type of way about that. And so keeping it real short, because I'm sure his perspective might be just a bit different than mine, but
Wait.
we always make a joke that we tutored each other in math and we were both failing. Um, hey, it is what it is, but we had a good time learning from each other, learning our failures, but we were just so close. And then I want to say it was 11th grade, the last day of school, and we were on the bus, and I turned to him and I said, I'm going to marry you. And I got off the bus, and we didn't see each other all summer, really, because I think I went to California for the summer and then came back, and we picked up like nothing ever stopped. You know what I mean? Our friendship blossomed into a relationship, and we had our tumultuous moments, some scary moments, but we made it. We made it through. And
Yay! I'm
then,
happy. I'm happy to hear. I love hearing love stories. I love to hear the victories in the end. And LeVar, let's hear your perspective
yeah,
through your
yeah.
eyes. Where are
And
we
you can bring
starting?
it. You can go ahead and bring it on to current then.
What, well, I guess
So
the question, as Lolo, as you explain your story and
Yeah.
you vulnerably share with us that you were rough around the edges, and your other experiences with men, etc. And then all of a sudden, LeVar, you come in. What did you see?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tanya. What did you see, Dolly?
Uh-oh.
it was mayhem, total mayhem. That's what it was. Um, I'll say that our perspectives our stories are exactly the same. Our perspectives are slightly different only because at that time, she was going through certain things, living at home with her family, and I was going through certain things, living at home with family. So for me, dating was almost impossible. Just put it that way. I was confined in the house. My stepdad was really strict. All I did was like chores all day, yard work and stuff. So just to even go outside was like, a battle. Let's put it that way. So going to dances and, things like that, even in dating and seeing someone outside of, being at school during school hours at that time was rare, So for me, dating was, I don't want to say it wasn't serious really until I met Laura. Prior to that, it was just, I didn't even ask anyone out. I didn't look for anyone. If I dated someone, it's because they came to me. Um, so when I met Laura, I was actually dating someone because they came to me, and I was in a relationship that I kind of didn't want to be in, which made it worse because it was my best friend's sister's best friend. Let's put it that way. And so, first time I experienced, I won't say met, but experienced Laura, I was walking with this girl I was dating, and she was walking behind us,
Oh
Laura,
God.
with her friend, talking about the girl
Oh
out
God.
loud. And it made it worse because I was embarrassed yet laughing at the same time because everything she was saying, unfortunately, was like
True.
too true. You know what I mean? And but at the same time, I
It's
kind
just
of felt
rude.
bad because I was dating her at the time, even though I was looking for a way out of the relationship. It was really bad. So when she says I got to experience kind of like the worst of her, if you would say, that made me kind of. I looked back at her. I didn't really know who she was. I had just seen her in the halls, and I was just like, oh my god, So I didn't get the best first impression of her necessarily because at that time I didn't even know she liked me. So when I found out she liked me, I
She knew
realized what she did.
she knew what she
Yeah,
wanted.
it was like okay. It makes sense. But we all ended up friends. We ended up friends with my best friend, who was the girl I was dating, and all that. So it worked out. But that was the initial. After that, like our senior year when we dated, because our 11th grade year we knew each other. That was pretty much it. We talked and stuff like that. Our senior year is when we actually started dating. So we dated throughout, not the whole senior year, but it was kind of like half of it as far as seriously, because we were talking, and then we had some issues with some friends who didn't want her dating me. They wanted her to date some of their friends from another school, stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? And so
Of
they were
course,
on her,
it's
and I was
Always
like,
something. Good
yeah, they tried
God.
to break us up, and it didn't work. We ended up figuring out later. And I don't really, I don't want to say I don't do drama. Everybody does drama, but I'm not an inviting person for drama. Anxiety, dealing with issues with people, like, I don't do that. So I'm the type of person, I'll just come right out and ask and say something like, hey, what's going on with this? Or what's going on with that? We've talked, and then it turns out, her friends were telling her something that I wasn't saying, and that kind of thing. So
Drama.
we at that age we experienced like, okay, so if we're gonna do this, it needs to be me and you, and that's it.
Mhm.
Like we got to
So
cut
you
everybody
figured that
else
out
out.
early,
So we
though.
learned that early, exactly.
Yes.
And so moving into adulthood to kind of move the story along. Um, when we graduated, her family relocated back to California. Mine was still in Ohio. She ended up going with them. I'm sorry, they went to Nevada, to
Vegas.
Vegas, and we had tried to do long term relationships before when we were younger, moving from state to state, but you're a kid. You don't have any control over anything. But now that we're adults, it's a little bit different. I tried to break up with her
He
because
tried to break up with me,
I
y'all.
was like,
He tried to
okay,
break up with me.
you're going to be in Vegas. I'm going to be here. Let's just talk about this. I don't want you to just move like I did 2 years before and then not even talk to, my girlfriend about, how are we going to handle this? Well, there was no way to handle it. You're just gone. right? So she's like, well, no, let's not do that. And, you know, it was a little more dramatic than that, but she broke down. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I don't want you
Rip
freaking
the
out.
letter
Like,
up. I
you
still
know,
have that
yeah.
ripped up letter to this day.
And so she's like, no, we'll figure it out some kind of way. And I was like, okay. So make a long story short, she stayed in Vegas over the summer. Home for me wasn't great, so I moved out at 17, got an apartment with my friend, and then she ended up coming back. So she caught the Greyhound bus for I don't know how many days it took. And,
3 days.
yeah, and came back, and that was it right there. When she got on that Greyhound bus,
She knew what she wanted.
I
Remember
knew she was
that?
committed.
What did you say in the 11th grade when you got off the bus? I'm gonna marry you.
Yeah,
That's it.
Mhm.
That's it.
and that was it. That was it. She came back to Ohio, and we've been figuring it out ever since.
Ever
you know?
since.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. LeVar, there had to have been, like, you know, the way that you guys described the roughness. And Lolo, I don't know that part of you. I know you're a strong woman. That I know. I know you hold your own. That I know. You can see it in your presence and everything. But LeVar, there had to have been some purity that you saw past all of that exterior.
Yeah, I'll say that I had dated girls that were rougher on the edges prior to Laura. Let's put it that way. So I was used to that, you know, especially being in San Diego where I used to live. And back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of gang violence, a lot of fights, a lot of running home from school in the Borden areas, you know, that kind of thing. So it wasn't anything that I was like shocked at, you know, or you know, like not used to, if you will.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't want to say I seem to attract that kind of personality many times before. So that was kind of the norm, if you will. But I knew that, you know, the way she acted or the things that she did, I understood exactly why. Even the fights that I saw her get into, you know what I mean? I wasn't like looking down at her like, oh, you know what I mean, girl, you know, threw orange juice on her. Like, what would you do? You know what I mean? Like right in the face. I was just like, ooh, yeah, she deserved it. You know what I mean? I don't condone fighting, but to me, that's self-defense. Somebody does something to you, you do something back. Like that's just what it is. You know? But spending time with her one-on-one was completely different. And I knew that, you know. So when we started actually talking seriously and spending quality time together, you know, it was totally different. She was, I don't want to say a totally different person, but there was no need for that roughness to come out. You know what I mean?
It's interesting because when you're given a different environment to show the truth of who you are, we do allow, you know, we are different people.
Yeah.
And one-on-one, you got to experience the difference than growing up in the environment of survival. Like I call it the survival environment, that you have to become that in order to survive the environment. So had you not had to survive the environment and become that character,
right?
You know, so I guess for me, I look at it from a different lens. Where it was like, all right, you guys are surviving your environments. You talk about growing up in a strict upbringing, you know, you talk about having to be in an environment where people were running from gangs and this and that, you know, like it just, you did what you had to do to put that wall up, but underneath all that, it's just, this is the purity of who I am. So I commend you guys for sorting through it and figuring it out early, that you weren't going to let people interfere in what you guys had. And I think that is a big key factor, because I was going to ask, it's one of my questions I wanted to ask this evening was, you know, how do you keep the outside from a way, like you're on the show, you're global, you're live.
Yeah.
You know, here it is, you're sharing your life. And how do you allow yourselves to be vulnerable and share yourselves with the world at the same time, not letting people interfere with who you are? And you just answered that, you figured it out.
Yeah. And I think it's key to mention that we used to be a part of, I think I told you this previously, a part of a church community that failed. But we learned a lot of lessons from that. And it really taught us how to trust people, but at a distance, and not let people into our personal lives so close to where they feel, you know, comfortable. You know, I don't mind people knowing about us, because who you get outside is who you're getting inside as well. I mean, we're the same people. But as far as no one would ever know if we had arguments, which we really don't. Our arguments last 2 minutes, and it's so minuscule. It's like, love you, boo. All right, let's move on. It's kind of like that, you know, and it's not always been that way though, Tanya. Something I want to point out with he and I, because I was such a fractured individual, I saw everything that he had to say about me, any criticisms throughout our journey. I saw them as it's all my fault. Everything was my fault. I haven't had any, I have still have an issue with feeling accepted, not feeling rejected, feeling like people want me in their lives. Um, he showed me a different way, but he also called me out on my bullshit too. He didn't let me get away with anything. There was this one time he and I were arguing, and he came to me and he brought the Bible to me, and he sat it down in front of me, and he said, if we, and I can't remember the scripture that he pointed at. Now, mind you, right before then, I had just gotten myself and my girls, because my oldest was two or three. She was three, and then my newborn, she was just a few months old, and I went and found us a church because we were having just some difficulty. But the thing was, we were living with my mom. That's a whole nother other. Like I don't know if anybody understands what that dynamic really can do to the damage it can cause in a relationship, but it is very damaging. But while we were in the midst of that, I was trying to find a church, a home church for us to go to, because I know I needed something. I wanted better for me and my kids. So we went, and I was already like in that mode and getting ready to ask him if he wanted to come and attend with us. And he came and brought the Bible to me and pointed that scripture. He goes, if we can't live like that, then we don't need to be together. I said, ain't this about a what? I'm the one going to church. I was so pissed. I was so angry. But then I had to swallow that and say, you know what? Okay, he's trying to lead. He's trying to lead, and I'm gonna get out of my own way and let him lead. And that's what he did. And that probably was the most pivotal moment in our relationship, where things really started to make a change. And we got to a place where we had to separate ourselves from family completely, like other side of town, type deal. Yeah. Nobody in our business. Nobody, because I just feel like when you divulge too much, people feel off or feel comfortable. Like I said, super comfortable to say anything that they want about that relationship. Say, whatever is going on, pry, poke, suggest. Like, I don't know how many times I got, just unsolicited advice. I don't need your advice. I'm good. We're just trying to figure out how to be adults and parents right now.
Right.
So if I need help, I will seek out help. I know how to do that. But that was, again, just a pivotal moment. Wouldn't you agree? That was the biggest pivot we made. Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me when I listen, LeVar, you said you came from a very strict upbringing, and Lolo, you said you had a little bit more freedom exploring life in your environment. And I say in your community, in your upbringing, like in your social setting. LeVar, you obviously, when you said he brought you the Bible, to me, what I hear is he's your discipline. He's your calm.
Oh, girl. Yes. Call it as you see it. That's it. He is. I call him my voice of reason.
Yeah, and it's funny because the whole story that she told, like, she actually kind of said that to me at that time. But if you back up, I grew up in church, went to church 4 or 5 days a week, was in all the choirs, was in all that. At that time when we were together, we weren't actively attending a church. So I knew all about the principles of the Bible and scriptures and things like that. I had just come from living that, you know what I mean, for 18 years, literally. So it was like that, okay, well, you're going now and you're going and getting that, that feeding. I've kind of already had that, but I wasn't going to impose that onto my family that I'm just knowing now, who at that time weren't going. Yeah, she had been, but we weren't really like pursuing that actively. So when that happened, it was almost perfect timing because I was transitioning and coming out of the military and kind of had a difficult time with that, just finding my place and what I wanted to do after leaving. And it worked out really well for not just us as a couple, but individuals as well. So that was like perfect time, so pivotal point in us getting it together. Like we were already together. There wasn't really anything that necessarily was pulling us apart. Even with what I said, like if we can't live like this, we couldn't be together. Yeah. It wasn't that we were actually like separating from each other. We were just at a place where we knew we needed to make a change, not just between us and our relationship, but as far as adulting and some of the decisions we were making, like as far as where we were living, and like I said, when I transitioned from coming out of the military, and then both of us trying to develop careers. Like I was trying to go to school, and all of that. So it was rough just trying to make decisions and being able to afford it, all that good stuff.
And your parents
So
at the same time. You were parents at the same
yes,
time.
and we were
So
parents. So
whatever God had planned for you or has planned for you, He threw you in the deep end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
From the beginning. You mentioned that you ended up in a church that offered some challenges. How did that impact your relationship together?
I honestly think the whole situation helped us to
become solid as a rock,
become even more solid. Yeah.
That part.
No, we had, of course, we had some because we were music ministers. I was the music minister. She was the lead worship leader, and my best friend was like a co-pastor or something like that.
Yeah.
But we were all in the band together. We started it all together. So yeah, it challenged all of our relationships. Actually, there's some people that we don't even talk to now because of all that, and so the challenges were real. It was 12 years. I want to say we labored. We started a church from scratch,
from the ground up.
Yeah, from the ground up.
Yeah.
We went to church for about maybe 3 years
before that
at another church, like a larger church, and all that. But then we started a church.
Okay. Well, we get it. We understand. You got through it. It made you stronger. You didn't go.
It grew us up too. It grew us up.
Yes.
And you're standing. So let's get to the fun part. The fun part that I like to find out, where you obviously somewhere along the way you started to learn about one another.
Yeah.
And you started to figure out through all these trials and tribulations. Obviously, everybody listening in, you hear that they've been thrown in the deep end. They've had to grow up. They've had to figure it out. They're finding themselves being parents. A lot of different things going on. So where do you start to find yourself through each other? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Describe that.
I think day by day, every interaction that we've ever had, it shows us a different reflection of ourselves by the way that we respond to each other, the way that we work through issues together, not separately as individuals, but together. I had to learn that. He taught me that, because I would just assume, like, and we've shared the responsibility of like finances, bills, things like that. But he has always been like that primary one. But when I start to see stresses from him, and I start to see changes in behavior that aren't necessarily the most positive, then I start to inquire. And I say, baby, what's going on? Like, is this too much for you? And he will say yes.
Here's a good example.
He has said yes.
We started getting our groceries delivered. And this situation is really kind of minuscule in a way, but when you think about it, all the little things add up, right? So this is one. So we recently switched to ordering groceries, right? Especially when COVID happened. Where we live, grocery store is right across the street, but there's a major freeway they're doing construction on, so it's hard. It's really a pain to get over there. So we started having our groceries delivered. She started off ordering them through the app or whatever, and then I'm not sure how it transitioned, but some kind of way I ended up being the one doing that, and putting together the orders and this and that. But like, because of her fitness and her health goals, she's got more strict, what would you call it? Menu items, if you will, like things that she has to buy, versus me and my son, we can pretty much kind of eat anything. But then it turned into a stressor on my end because I had to try to manage now her menu that I don't really know well, and this and that. And so the minute she saw me kind of stressing about it, she's like, "You want me to take it over? You want me to start doing it again, or whatever?" And I'm just like, man, it ain't that big a deal. I'm thinking in my mind, it's not that big a deal, but you know what? Yeah, can you please just at least help me? Like, let's see if we can figure out how we can, So basically, the point I'm getting to is the compromise or the solution we came up with was me not just passing it back to her, but saying, okay, you know what? Let's figure out a way to see if we can make it easier so that I'm just not passing responsibility back and forth, right? So we figured out, the app, we can just share the same login so that you can go into the app, load what you need, then I can go in and load what I need, and then we're done. So we figured that,
I like that. I think that everybody in the audience, we have to actually really stop there for a minute. I think the audience really needs to pay attention to how you guys created a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes in relationships, what we do is we pass the responsibility back. You guys chose not to pass it back and forth. That's where I call the tennis match. And then somebody ends up getting angry in the end because it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Versus you guys actually joining in and shared responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I thought that it's not even about, so to me, I just think that all these external things are just vehicles into showing how we interact with one another.
Yeah.
And, that was just a vehicle to show how you were interacting. So I commend you guys for actually, Lolo, you recognizing, is that too much for you? LeVar saying, hey, you know what? It's not necessarily too much. Well, maybe it is, and you guys saying, okay, well, instead of passing it back, let's share it.
Right. And that's huge because I didn't grow up with examples of what this thing was supposed to look like. And so everything was just a crapshoot as far as we're concerned. But we got to a place, and I want to say maybe it was around about 10 years ago when we kind of left the church, and we had time to actually focus on each other and really figure out what each other needed. I wanted to know how I could be the best for him, and he felt the same, and he reciprocated that energy. So when he's off kilter, I know it, and he knows when I am, and we figure out what to do. I never wanted to be the wife. I never wanted anyone to refer to me as the wife. I personally think that's the most disrespectful phrase anyone could use towards their wife, because now if he were to use that towards me, I don't feel valued in that statement. You feel me? So he's never, ever used that terminology to what do you call it? To
express to you, to introduce
right to anyone. You know what I mean? He uses my name, Laura. He uses my name every single time. And whenever we get, into, maybe we're out, because arguments and things like that happen when you're out and about or around other people and you have expectations of each other. I'm the loud, talkative socialite, if you will. He's not. I'm receptive to that, and I respect that about him. So before, I'd be like, in my younger years, we'd go out and I'd just be like, oh, whatever, just be happy and I want to do this and Now, baby, you just let me know when you're ready to go. When you're ready to go, I'll shut it down. Let's go.
Right.
And that's my way of honoring and respecting him. And he does the same for me. Like, he'll extend himself when he gets exhausted. We have these points where we reach just like our ceiling of social interaction. He has that. And when that goes off, he's like, I'm done. I'm good. We really need to go. I'm tired. I want to lay down. I want to be in my house,
Right.
And I respect that about him, but he gives that right back. That reciprocity is huge. And it's always, I think that's the most, if I communicate anything to anyone about that, is our reciprocity game is on lock. If he's not good, I'm not good. It's not him over there. Oh, he tripped. Never. Right. Never. Not now. Not in my adult grown years. I know
that. Maturity. It's the maturity.
Oh, yeah. Right? Oh, yeah.
And I take it a little bit deeper. We said it offline, and I take it a little deeper where how you love yourself, it's how you love your partner is a reflection of how you love yourself.
That part right there.
And when you're doing that, it's deeper than just LeVar, or it's deeper than just Lolo.
Yeah.
This is how I'm loving myself through the reflection of my partner.
And I would second that with saying that I had to learn what that was supposed to look like, because he wasn't set up for success when he got with me. You know what I'm saying? I didn't give him a whole lot to work with. He had a lot of work to do.
But he needed.
I'm not saying that he was perfect, right? I will not say that he was perfect, because he learned a lot of lessons from me as well. But I point mine out. I feel like I had so much working against me that he had to deal with. I had a lot of baggage. And one of those was self-love. I had no idea what that was until probably in my mid-30s. Up until today, I'm still learning what that's supposed to look like. He loved the heaven out of me. He just literally loved the heaven out of me. And he showed me what unconditional love really looked like. I had no idea what that really was supposed to feel like in terms of a relationship between a man and a woman. And even now, I have things like I'll be candid. I'm considering a surgical procedure to remove some extra skin from weight loss, and he has never made me feel bad about number one, having that extra weight, because he loved me when I was at my heaviest, and he loves me just as much now. He never pointed out anything about me that he felt, wasn't acceptable. He never made me feel that way. And that is a prize. I don't know if y'all have ever felt that, but that is a
So
prize.
what I'm going to say to that, when you take it to biblical terms, I've studied the Bible since I was a little kid, because I was fascinated with it on my own accord. I had a different interpretation than the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we all did.
Yeah.
And when Christ, love your wife like Christ loved the church.
Mhm.
And I look at it, and your wife is your truest reflection of yourself.
Yeah.
And fighting for her and honoring her and making her feel the ultimate best is a reflection of how you're loving yourself. When you're filling your Lolo's tank, and obviously you're doing it, and you saw the diamond in the rough, right?
Yes, God, he did.
Well, to me, and I only know you as the diamond, so I'm only going to express you as the
Right, yes.
So when I look at that and I hear the story, to me, I'm like, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
She's the diamond, and you saw that diamond and you stuck through it. And I think when you work, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, but when you work hard at something, you're not just going to give it up that easily. You're not going to let something or someone or anything come in and just take it away or destroy it or tear it down when you've slaved to bring it to where you're at.
Exactly. No, I agree with that. Yep.
So what do you think you've learned most about yourself through, I'll give each of you a chance to speak about yourself through the experience with each other. Something great, something that you didn't realize before about your personality, your characteristic.
You want to take that?
I learned that I can do a lot of great many things. When I met Laura, I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I didn't have a whole lot of really anything. Nobody really knew it, just because we're kids. They don't really look at you that deep or that detailed, right? They just look at your grades and what do you want to do? You're gonna go to college. They don't really talk to you about your mental or your psyche, right? When I moved out, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Barely knew how to balance a checkbook. Didn't know anything about paying rent. Didn't know anything about any of that. But I had worked. I had, done the basics, if you will, of what my parents had taught me. My stepfather at that time did not get along. And I wanted to be away from him, basically. So I left. I was terrified when I left, but I was happy because my situation had changed. But I was totally naive to what I was, getting myself into, moving out in adulthood. And in Ohio at that, in the middle of the winter, snow and all that, didn't know anything about maintaining, a job in that kind of environment. So with Laura,
you're
when
17
she came
now,
back,
right?
this is 17. This is 17.
That's young.
Yeah. So by the time she came, I had finally turned 18. And we started living together, and we literally learned everything together by failing, by messing up, by doing some dirt. You know what I mean? We learned everything together. So I learned that everything that I can do and that I have done, I learned that I can do by being with her, because she is the outgoing one. I've grown to be more outgoing, but before I was more of the one that would really just kind of sit back and watch things happen around me, because I didn't have that motivation to go out and captivate light, to grab light by the horns, if you will. It was more of, hey, can I go outside? No, I want you to go out back and go, pull weeds, pull the grass up, and stuff like that. It was like I was just stuck in the house all day, literally. So I've grown to be more I don't want to say accommodating, but like she says, I'm social, but to a certain point, I do get burned out when it comes to laughing and dancing and blah blah blah. I might just go sit back and kind of just relax, but you can tell the difference of when I'm on, and then when it's like, okay, I'm kind of done with that part. Not that I'm
Yeah.
not happy, but it's just I need to transition into something else. She can go
Your
all day
thermostat is a
long.
little bit lower.
Exactly,
That's it.
exactly. She can go
That's
all day
it.
long. So that hasn't really been a sort of problem in our relationship. It just shows the differences in our personalities that we're,
We are complete opposites.
Well, I was going to say, I like the balance that you're here over here, LeVar, is the stability, but Lolo, you're the adventure. You're the risk taker.
Yes.
You're like,
I've gotten to see New York because of her. I've gotten to see
Yeah.
San Francisco. I got to go to Italy because of her. Like all that stuff because of her. Stuff I'd have been like, there's no way we can do that.
your vocabulary when it comes to experiencing life.
Nope.
Yeah.
So,
The no in her vocabulary exists because I put it there. I'd be like, hold on. And it's not, and I take that back. It's not that I ever say no. I don't. I've never controlled her. I've never ever wanted to control her.
no,
I can't
but
barely
you can
control
tell
myself.
just even by the way, we see you interacting in social media, like you're more of a risk taker. You're out there, you're bold.
Yes, she is. She's
You're
brought
not
some
afraid
stuff
to
across
take
the plate. Ooh.
chances. And for you
Yeah.
to go, and I'm going to go back to your love, you wanted, look, I'm going to marry you. That's it. This is what life looks like.
Yeah.
So when I remember doing your campaign, and I don't know what made you come up with Solid as a Rock, it just was fitting. And it was like, you're the anchor when you make that decision. Lolo, you sound like to me when you make that decision, you're anchored in it, and, heaven and earth ain't going to move until.
That's it. Like, and you know what? And I feel like, how can I express it? We're so solid because we love each other so hard, like so hard. Like I only have eyes for my husband. I don't even really look. It's not that I can't look at other men. I don't really even look them in the eye because I don't want that potential to even be there. So I won't know what men actually look like unless we're actually verbally having a transactional type of engagement. Like we're actually transacting words. And, I feel like that's number one, a respect for him, but it's also a respect for me because I never want to put myself in a position where, I have those thoughts and entertain those thoughts. And we've talked about this, I've never even seen my husband, look at another woman and in a negative way. He'll look in admiration. He goes, what do you think? No, not like that. I'm talking about your typical male. What do men typically do? What we see on social, right? We
So
see,
it's different.
look at that girl. Or looking as soon as I leave, he looking like this and leaned to the side and he just admired. He's never done that to me.
Seeing eye candy in a passing, like my husband used to be like Halle Berry, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but not where
right.
Take it to.
Exactly.
I get it.
I had to dig to find out that, who was it? Nia Long was like a little crush, right? A celebrity crush. Or you know what I mean? I had to dig. I'm like, I have no idea like what you even would look for if you weren't with me. I just think it's fun to know. But like I said, I just go back to he's always just respected me in that capacity, and again, I just give that in return.
Right. And I think like I'm listening to you, and what I appreciate you saying is that you love yourself and you respect yourself, your relationship, your husband so much that you're not going to put yourself in that position. And here's what I say to people, and certainly if you're in an abusive relationship, leave it for sure.
100%.
You're always going to follow you. So if your partner's heart is in the right place, but they're just dealing with a program and a belief, who work on becoming the best you and presenting yourself in a way that you can help your partner, and vice versa. There's so much, you'll never get bored of exploring one another if you really are into each other.
Yes. Like, and we really enjoy each other.
Yeah. Like there's so many I think I'm the most interesting person I'll ever meet.
Right.
Had the best conversations with myself.
Yeah.
Did I see that out loud? So if I think that and my partner is actually my reflection, he's also going to be just as interesting
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and no judgment out there to anybody, just for me, my identification is I'm not sure how we get so bored of one another when we are actually entwined with one another to actually get to know each other on that level.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to plug up my computer, so it just gave me the low battery sign. So he's gonna grab the
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
cord or whatever. I was like, oh
We're good.
no.
Yeah.
But
So I appreciate the fact that and certainly, like, everybody has opportunities, especially when you're together for 25 years, to opportunities do present itself. So I do appreciate the fact that listening to you guys, and what makes your relationship successful is understanding your own personal boundaries first before you understand your partner's boundaries.
yes,
I
yes.
think that's important. When you understand your boundaries and you understand, you said, if I look, I don't even want to put myself looking at eyes or the window of the soul, but right there's the connection. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I also got better about just like really checking myself. I have to check myself constantly, check my attitude, check the way that I'm talking to him, the way that I, project certain things in my voice. I try to keep that in check. No one is perfect. You're never going to be perfect. Things happen, situation, depending on the situation, certain things come across. We have miscommunications all the time, but we like to kind of take a step back and say, wait a minute, that's not really the way that I want to say it. That's not what I'm trying to communicate to you. So hear me out. He does that to me all the time. Hear me out. Give me a moment. Let me get it out before you react. And that way we could like flesh out all the details later or whatever. But I had to learn that, man. I really had to learn that. I gave him hell when it came to me. I was so notorious for being, oh, so it's my fault. And
You're like, I just said we.
Going off the handle.
But we need to figure out.
But yeah, just from previous experience, and how I've ever seen anyone communicate, it was always just this tumultuous, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like
constantly. So I also had to learn how to be, well, what do you call it? There's a term for it, and I used to use it all the time, and I don't think I use it anymore. But not socially intelligent. You know it. Tell me, Tanya.
I'm searching my Rolodex.
I know. I'm like, wait a minute. I used to use this term all the time. Emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence. I spent years researching the topic, trying to figure out, because my degree was going to be in psychology, and that's still like the basis of my degree, but it's more leadership than psychology. But that component, I really wanted to understand myself, which is why I was even attracted to psychology. I wanted to understand myself better. Why do we do the things that we do? Why do we express ourselves in the way that we do? And I had to go back, and even though I could not repair damage that had already been done, I had to start fresh and say, you know what? I'm not going to react that way anymore. I'm not going to make split-second knee-jerk reactions or assumptions. And that, because I feel like assumptions kill relationships. Assumptions kill.
I've had to learn a lot. And especially when you said earlier on, when you don't have the foundation, you don't have the examples, you don't have data and resources to pull up from the past. Yeah. This is what it looks like. But something feels off. You just don't know how to navigate differently with what's being presented and being triggered every single time.
Right.
And it's not till, I remember one of the successes in my relationship was in the middle of an argument. I remember thinking, what do I really want in this moment? It was like, I just want a hug. Like, I don't want anything else. Like, I just.
Right.
I don't mean anything.
I've been there. I've been there.
And you're arguing and beating around the bush, and all you want is just.
Right. All I want is a hug.
Yeah,
we've done that. It's like, I just want a hug. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
Life itself is just so hard to deal with that sometimes it's the last thing that you want to be doing is this back and forth tango.
Right. You gotta learn how to let stuff go.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like a lot of times what you want. I don't know if you find with the two of you what you want. Like I say to my husband all the time, you know, we're saying the same thing, but we need the same thing from one another. And all we're doing is playing tennis,
Yeah.
literally a tennis match back and forth, trying to get it. And I said, one of us has to let the tennis ball go out of bounds, like so that we can get this,
Yes.
Yeah,
because
and
we
you
are
gotta
literally
go off.
saying the same thing. And
100%.
so it was like when I started to wake up to that, I was like, what are we really doing here? Like, you know? But again, we weren't given the tools or the resources to figure out what that looked like. So I commend couples like yourself. We've been together for 30 years, my husband and I. So I commend couples like
Nice.
yourself
Yay.
that, yeah. And we've, you know, your story, like we can exchange stories on the rough terrains of life. We've had to stick together and still working through it, and the
Yeah.
kids and the ebbs and flows. And I think my biggest light bulb moment in my relationship was understanding how I was loving myself through my husband.
Mm-hmm.
That was my biggest light bulb moment. I was like, and
Yeah.
I wasn't even how I was loving myself. I was seeing the stark opposite, how I was hating myself.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah. I had that too. I had that too. There was a time when I was probably at my heaviest, 245 pounds, that it was very significant, because of the way that I would negative talk myself in front of him. And he literally said to me, I remember all of our moments, the pocket moments, because I learned from them. I made a choice to learn from it and not stay stuck in it or hold him accountable for it. But he said to me, I need you to stop saying those things about yourself, that you're fat and you're this and that, because I can't be attracted to that. If you just down, you know what I mean, degrading
Fair
yourself,
enough, right?
how do you expect me to be attracted to you? Oh man, that blew my flipping mind. I was like, oh, duh, duh. I mean, it only makes sense, right? Oh man, and even though it hurt me to my heart, like I was just like, all this time I've been doing this, and I'm just tearing you down, like at the same time, and
Mhm.
didn't even realize that
Mhm.
from the inside out. And that hurt me to my heart, but I learned a great lesson from that. And from then on out, I mean, what you see is what you get. I'm always put together, and it's not because I'm vain. I wouldn't say that I'm high maintenance. Would you say I'm high maintenance? I just started going to get my nails done again because I'm like, it's just extra money. I stopped buying purses. I just don't like things anymore. I used to have all the purses, all the shoes, and da da da. I'm so low key, like only really the essentials. Only really the essentials that I need.
And what we
And
see, I'm going to tell you from the outside world, we see your heart, we see the gifts that you have to offer.
oh man,
That's what we see. LeVar, how do you handle the powerhouse wife that you have, the successes, her being out there? How do you handle that?
I don't. There literally there is no handling. It's we're in a relationship. She's grown. She's a person. I've known her since she was a kid, technically,
yeah.
and I know that she can handle herself and she can handle life. She could handle life without me, you know.
And
So from
she's about to skyrocket into a whole other
yeah,
level.
you know, now as far as like us growing together, yeah, we both learned some things from a lot of things from each other. Almost everything we either learn from each other or we learn from something else, but together, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen her growth. I've seen, the way she's changed. So there is no handling. And to me, I feel like in a relationship, there is no you can say, okay, the man leads, or in some relationships, the woman leads. It all depends on what your interpretation of leading is. You know what I mean? If you
Mm-hmm.
both have, foundational values for your family, well, that's something you do together. It never should be one person over the other.
Right.
Never.
Well, I
You
like
know?
the fact that you're secure enough in yourself that you're not threatened by, because you
Exactly.
have
Well,
here's the
one way
reality.
that
You
I
have a
did that
powerhouse.
though, I had to remove myself away from other men who weren't like that. And
Mm.
who were in that position of, when I come home, my wife needs to have dinner on the table for me. I'm like, my mom taught me how to cook so that whether somebody's home or not, I can feed myself. Like to me, those principles, like some values that people have, traditions, or if you want to call them, that they pass down from other I honestly think a lot of that is what's damaging a lot of family, because a lot of those values and rules and things don't apply to every situation. Don't apply to when I wanted to pursue, a higher career than the jobs I was working coming out of the military. I wanted to go to school, but we had kids. We couldn't afford for me to work and try to go to school.
And pay
It was
daycare.
actually cheaper to quit my job and go to school and watch the kids during the day, because daycare was so expensive. We had babies. You know what I mean? It was like what was it like?
Couple
Like
thousand.
600 a pop or 650 per child. It was like $1,200 we were paying, a month at that
Mm-hmm.
time, working in restaurants and stuff like that. So I left, quit my job, watched the kids during the day, and then I ended up picking up a job like maybe 3 or 6 months later into going to school, and I started doing home care because I was a respiratory therapist in the military. So there was some times where she was working, but I wasn't. But if you talk to certain people who knew us back then, and I'll just put it out there, some people we started our church with, if you let them tell our story, I was unemployed, I didn't have a job, I didn't know what I was doing in life. And it's like, and we're like, what in the world? Like, what are you talking about?
We
Like,
had a
that is
plan.
not what
We
was
had a
happening.
plan. All this time we had a plan.
Yeah,
It wasn't your typical plan, what everybody else thought we should be doing, but we knew what we wanted to do
exactly,
and what we wanted out of life.
That's how we learned the difference of letting people speak into your life. And it's not that people have harm for you, but sometimes people need to just keep their mouth shut. I'll just be real. I don't
Everybody
care.
likes company, right? And people, not everybody, just because of where people are at in their own lives, they don't necessarily want to see you succeed. Not because they don't want to see you personally succeed.
Right.
They're not able to receive that themselves, so they
That part. Yeah.
They're limited, right? I just have Summer McPhee. She says, yes, your love and light shines bright, Laura. And,
thank you, Summer.
She's been commenting throughout, so I apologize for not. So she says, in fact, so I don't know where in the dialogue, in the conversation, she was pointing that out. But thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you.
So we've got about 7 minutes left, and I really, really want to end with, solid as a rock, how I take care of him, how I take care of her, just some real tools and tips that you can provide our audience with, how they can create success in their own relationship.
I would say 100% seeing your significant other, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, as your partner, and not just a person who's supposed to serve you. I did not grow up with traditional values, where, like, even with, I think I told this story before on a recent show. We didn't even get married conventionally. We've never had a wedding. We knew we wanted to get married. We got married before he went to the military. That was that. Would I have loved a big wedding? Yeah, maybe. But it wasn't important. And 25 years later, it's still not that important. I mean, I don't have a lot of family or a lot of people that are close to me. So it's like, we say it all the time, like, who would we even invite? We don't really do any of that.
Whoever's
you know what I mean?
That
Who would come? People that we've known from years ago, And so ultimately, he is my friend. He is my companion. He is my appendage. I call him my appendage. He's like my arm. So whatever the rest of my body does, my arm is coming with me. And I'm going to make sure that my arm gets just as much love as this arm. You know what I'm saying? So, there's no separating us. There's nothing that can come in between us unless we make that decision together to say this is it. And I don't see that ever happening. God bless it. What about
you? Absolutely. LeVar, what do you say to that?
Well, I'll say to answer the question, of course, communication. We always talk about communication. Everybody's version of communication is different, unfortunately. So, really, getting out of, how can I put it? I'm from a guy's perspective, right? A lot of men don't like to express their feelings because that's kind of what we're taught, being tough and being, whatever. But the problem is that your mind doesn't care whether you're male or female, whether you're tough or not. You know what I mean? Anybody can be broken down, just like any. You get a cut, anybody can bleed out and die. It doesn't matter how tough you are, right? So for guys, it's more of working through expectations, number one. Always having that pressure, feeling like I need to be in control, like I should be managing the problems and things that are going on, or even having an expectation from the spouse that you're supposed to have this particular position in our relationship, and why are you not fulfilling it, right? If that hasn't been communicated, that relationship's already failing. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of even folks that we've been friends with that have relationships, is that they do certain things, like, for instance, arguing in front of people. Well, we already know if you snap at me and I don't have the discipline to hold that in and react a certain way, I'm going to snap back. That's a fail. That's automatically already a fail, right? So it's working on those things that are her triggers, those things that are my triggers. Like, if you're not actively doing that, then that's not really a relationship. You just want to be with somebody for a particular reason, and that's pretty much it.
That's
you know what I mean? And to me, that's not marriage. That's not marriage. That's dating. You know what I mean? Or if you want to be that couple that's in that open relationship. It takes work, but it's something you have to want. Both people have to want that, and that's what I think happens a lot of times. Not each party is not even in wanting to have someone like that. And to me, that's marriage. Some people think marriage, like you said, is just someone that's there to fulfill the fantasy that you had from when you was 7 or 8 years old. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I want. This is what I want in a person. But you got to realize your want for that person may not be the same want that that person wants for themselves. So if you put that expectation on them without them knowing it, that's already a fail. That's
it is.
Assuming.
You're so right.
Got to take assumptions out. Don't assume that just because my husband knows I like purple, that he's going to buy me purple flowers on Father's or on Mother's Day. But then he comes with yellow.
Oh my
gosh!
I mean?
Like you got to stop reacting out of things that haven't been communicated and that don't exist. We can't read minds.
I will piggyback on that, and I will also say one thing that I've done. I'm not telling everybody to do this, but one thing I've done is I've eliminated that expectation of all of these different holidays and things like that. Yes, I want my husband to appreciate me, love me, but I'm not going to allow society's holidays to dictate that for me. So I've completely removed that. I don't ever now. If he goes and gets me, like I said, I don't like things anymore. I wanted plants. Right. And so for Mother's Day, he and the kids got me plants. Great. But don't feel obligated to do all of these things for me. I don't really want anything for my birthday. I don't want anything for Christmas. Let's have experiences together versus all of this BS around holidays. I just have never really made sense to me. But I put my foot down and I'm like, you know what? If I want to celebrate you or you want to celebrate me, let's do that. But let's not let it be society's holidays that dictate that. It's
like, let's not be defined.
Exactly.
Those occasions.
Because that is problematic. That can be problematic. If he doesn't get me something for Valentine's Day and I'm expecting it because the world is celebrating it, fail.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a fail.
My kids would make me gifts all the time. And I said, the best thing that you could ever do for me is make something.
Make something from your heart. Yes.
Absolutely. Because we lost. It's not just the making, it's like the heart and the energy, everything that went into it.
Yes.
If you can give me a card and remember all those things that we celebrated and appreciated of our time together and capture that in a little tiny letter.
Yeah.
I
know, exactly. It's something I can cherish forever. My son, for Mother's Day, got me this. I can't say I love you enough.
Right.
So this is a reminder, and so it's just little things like that. That's what matters. That's what matters.
So we are nearing the end of the show. I thank you guys. An hour, I'm sure, does not capture 25 years. We definitely will be
series.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do a series because we got a lot of stuff to talk about, girl.
Right. Well, you know what? The essence of it, of what I do gather from it is, hey, listen. 25 years. The key to it, you start out everybody, like anybody that tells me they got a perfect relationship, they're full of BS. Not true. It's who you become through it as a couple, as individuals. You definitely were thrown into the deep end. You made it through. You can stand here bearing witness to victory, understanding yourselves better and each other better, and understanding, still continuing to grow and learn, but understanding how to be more harmonious through the growth process.
100%.
And making each other look good too.
And making each other look good.
I'm not even friends with guys who talk about their wives in a negative fashion.
Right.
They take one conversation.
Your environment.
Your environment. Who wants to be around somebody who's married to someone in an intimate relationship with, and they don't even like them.
Right.
So I'll say to myself, well then, that's supposed to be your you're a top dog, right? So then, what does that put me? That means when I leave, you probably talking about me like, ratchet. I can't respect that. I don't. I
Yeah.
can't do that. And people
Yeah.
who do that in front of you, like we have some we know some friends and some family that kind of do that, and it's yeah, that's not.
It's
Good.
exhausting,
It's
number
exhausting.
one, but it just is a poor reflection, I think, on
Mhm.
them as individuals and as couples. And you know, everybody has, and it's not to down talk them, because they have some challenges, obviously, and they haven't figured that piece out. But that's one thing we won't let ourselves ever do.
So it's an opportunity for them to grow. But what I heard from you is communicating to everybody out there, and your tip is everybody has to have their personal standards
Oh
of
yeah.
what's acceptable and personal
Yep.
boundaries of what's
Yep. And
acceptable.
personal boundaries.
Yes, I
Yes.
love that. I love that. So, guys, thank you again for chiming in.
Thanks
I
for
want to
having us.
say just before we end, litfitnutritionandfitness.com.
Mhm.
Lolo, I am Lit Fit Lolo.
Yes,
On
my
Facebook,
handle.
Instagram, TikTok, and also on Clubhouse. You are in
Yes.
Clubhouse quite often. So
Yes.
anybody that's part of Clubhouse, please chime in, listen in. LeVar, thank you for joining in. Lolo, we will
Thank you.
talk.
Yes.
Welcome to thank you for tuning in to Tanya Talks, Real Talk, Real People, Real Issues, Real Events. If you're looking to take your life to the next level, please visit thetanyaexperience.com. Thank you, everybody, and good night. Thanks
Thank
again,
you,
guys.
Tanya.
Take care.